Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Spicy Species Review, where the species are spicy and the reviews are too. Today we're going to be talking about green tree pythons, arguably one of the most beautiful snakes in the world. This is my boy Toothpaste right here. He is what's called an Aru locality, which means he comes from, I assume, the island of Aru in West Papua, and he is just the coolest. This is not a care guide. I've linked my favorite care guide below in the description. This is a review of what it's like to keep one of these snakes. Right off the bat, let's talk about size. When these things come out of the egg, they are extremely tiny. Toothpaste here is coming up on 2 years old, and he's only this big. He does have a long way to go and is admittedly a little bit small for his age because of the care he was receiving with a previous owner. So the absolute maximum adult size is only 6 feet for these guys and between 3 and 5 pounds. They are, at the end of the day, a medium-sized snake, but it sure takes them a long time to get there. Which I think is really convenient because you can start small and upgrade as needed in terms of enclosures. Talking about temperament, if you've done any research on these snakes yet, you'll hear people saying that they're really not a handleable species and should be equated more to fish in an aquarium. And they are delicate and they are a little more nervous, but I and a significant portion of keepers think that they are very tractable, very handleable animals if you put the work in. So Toothpaste is actually a real sweetheart. He isn't bitey. Okay, he's a little bitey. We'll get to that in a second. But he's familiar with me to the point where I can enter his enclosure, I can take him off on his stick like this. I can also, if I wanted to, unravel him from his stick and free handle him. And I don't think he loves it, but once, the initial event of removing him from his perch is over, he does seem to get into exploring, crawling around my hands, my body. On occasion, I'll put him in one of my house plants or, on top of something, and he can hang out with me, and he doesn't seem to mind too much at all. That's not something you're going to be doing multiple times in a week. It's really to be reserved for when you need to take him out for cleaning his enclosure or any other type of maintenance stuff. But there is some value in interacting with them physically now and again, just to keep them used to it, desensitized to it, and okay with not only your touch, but your general presence, which is important if you're going to be putting your hands in the enclosure. This snake in particular is super tolerant to my presence and my touch, but he is still highly instinctually reactive. And this is a thing I've seen with all arboreal snakes and all arboreal animals, really. They're just in this environment where they need to act first and think later, shoot first and ask questions later. I have been bitten by Toothpaste on 2 different occasions when I entered his space too quickly, causing him to react, this guy is essentially a living arboreal snare trap. He lies in wait for something to come along, and when he senses movement or he senses heat with those heat pits on his face, he goes for it. And that's what happened to me. Immediately he bit me, realized I wasn't lunch, and let go. And that's what happened. The other factor is that he is nocturnal and is most active and actively hunting at night. And both of my bites occurred at night. So if you are going to handle your snake, you want to do it during the day for the most part. Again, I consider this snake a highly socialized individual who doesn't seem to particularly enjoy handling or time outside of the enclosure, certainly for the first few minutes. Here we go. All right, he's already getting the picture. Yeah, okay, so now he's... All right, so he's kind of waking up and realizing that he's out and about with me. He's okay. So we may see over the course of this video him coming off of his own accord. He really does well with when I approach him from below, like this. You don't want to loom over this animal, even though that's kind of what I'm doing with my face and my voice. But he does have an inquisitive, exploratory nature. And when you take him out, he really does seem to perk up and enter a thinking, exploratory mode, which you don't see as much in the enclosure, where he really is just perched in wait for prey, which is totally natural behavior for him and is an entirely fulfilling life for him. But stuff like this just makes life a little bit more interesting for him and for me as a keeper. So one last time, these snakes can be docile, they can be tamed essentially, or at least desensitized to human interaction, but they are more reactive than a lot of snakes. Again, I think the best way to put it is they shoot first and ask questions later. So you gotta watch out. So he still wants to hang on to this as an anchor point, and fair enough, that's what makes him feel secure. But now we can see his tail, which is bright blue with black speckling. What he'll do is perch up, be completely still, and wiggle that tail like this, just like the lure on an anglerfish or the tongue of an alligator snapping turtle. This kind of thing right here. And that hopefully will attract a prey item that he can then snatch onto. So the caudal luring stuff is really cool to watch and really cool to see it work and to see his tail react in terms of how it's moving when you offer prey. It reminds me a lot of a dog wagging its tail and how you can kind of see the emotions and read the mind of an animal through nothing but the movements of its tail. So these snakes are widely considered to be some of the most beautiful in the world, and with good reason. I have a lifelong affinity with the colors blue and green, specifically blue-green. I go crazy for cyan and stuff like that. And this is it, you know? Unless you're getting into venomous, potentially deadly vipers and stuff like that, you don't get these kind of colors in constrictor snakes. Certainly not pythons and boas anyway. But here he is. He's got that vibrant green back that transitions into a beautiful kind of robin's egg blue belly and creamy yellowy eggshell scales as well as white belly scales. Again, this is an Aru locality, and this is fairly typical for what they look like, if not slightly more blue in the belly. And there are different localities that display more blues, less blues, more yellows, darker color. You can get black freckling, you can get lighter greens, darker greens. It's all out there for the most part. And we are starting to see line breeding for specific traits. And there are even exceptionally blue snakes like the one I picked to show here. That is kind of the dream for me as a guy who loves blue, but those things carry a crazy price tag because they are selectively bred to be that way. You can also get a naturally occurring blue snake, but it's generally a hormonal color shift in a ovulating female. The other thing is that when they're born, they generally look like this. You get either a bright yellow or a bright red hatchling, and they go through what's called an ontogenic color change as they mature. So anytime you have a red or yellow baby, that is what you call a neonate, and it is a immature snake. Then as they get older, they will color shift into their adult coloration, which stays pretty consistent through the rest of their life. I think this adds a lot of value to the experience of keeping a green tree over the course of its whole life. Definitely cool to watch it happen, but the downside is you don't know what you're gonna get. You get a bright yellow baby snake, you're hoping for blue, and you get a dark green snake with black spots. You get a bright red baby, and you're hoping for a bright lime green vibrant snake with no yellow because you hate the color yellow. And maybe the adult coloration is a darker foresty green with massive blotches of yellow all over the place. So if you can get pictures of the parents, that's awesome. If you can at least know the locality, that goes a long way. But at the end of the day, you don't know what you're gonna end up with. So if you're really particular about how you want your adult snake to look, you're kind of in trouble. So this is where Toothpaste lives. I believe it's an 18-inch by 36-inch front opening Exoterra vivarium. We start off with a clay ball drainage area to make kind of a water table that's covered in screen window screen to keep the dirt from going down into that layer. We have a layer of organic potting soil, and then we have a bit of cocoa mulch and cocoa husk, which definitely could have been all mixed together, but it seems to be working fine as is. We have a very rich culture of invertebrates in the substrate. You can see little white guys moving around. Those are springtails that eat any mold or fungus that might start to grow. And just center there, you can see a dairy cow isopod, which is a bigger detritivore that eats decaying plant matter and will kind of break down any dookie that the snake leaves, which is cool. Although I do still manually remove turds on occasion just for my own peace of mind. Toothpaste is my only snake that is fully arboreal. He is a full-time tree snake, so when he wants to be warm, He takes the top branch. When he wants to cool down, he takes the lower branch. He really doesn't spend any time on the ground anywhere else. So that's something you have to provide. And that's something I think I've done here in a really cool and successful way. The other thing that makes him advanced is that he needs really high humidity and he doesn't necessarily drink water from a dish. So he needs to be misted every day, and he's going to drink the droplets of water that form on his own body, which is actually really cool to watch, but it does make him something of a high maintenance animal. Now, I can't guarantee that this is going to happen for your green tree python, but by giving him, this is a pint glass, a very tall water dish that comes close to his favorite perch, I have been able to get him to figure out drinking from still water, and I've caught him doing it on multiple occasions now. I'm quite proud. I don't know that this is a natural behavior for the snake, but it's something that he's figured out and is doing successfully. I still miss him every day though, because who knows if he's going to exhibit that behavior consistently. This is about as active as this snake gets. He is going to find a spot with the perfect temperature and coil up tight and not move for days at a time. Which leads me to what I think is the most important thing to say about what it's like to keep a green tree python and why you should get one. And that is because they are extremely conducive to life in captivity. This is a snake that loves to sit still in one place. They are naturally sedentary, and that translates to living a better life in a glass box. This is not an active snake. This is an ambush predator, and therefore they make a great display animal. I don't feel bad at all about keeping this guy in here. Like I said, I do handle him more than other people might, but I would sleep fine at night not handling him at all, because I know that the space I've provided him here is all that he needs. Again, he is gonna more than double in size, and there are plenty of people that would still keep him in this same tank. I personally am gonna play it by ear. If I think he gets too big, we'll have to upsize, but this is generally considered okay for an adult green tree python. Even though I said they get 6 feet, they do stay very thin, so don't think there's gonna be a giant boa constrictor crammed in here. Nothing like that. But yeah, see, he's getting comfy, and once he's comfy, all he wants in this world is to stay completely still, wiggle that little blue tail, and wait for something to come along. And thanks to me, once a week, something does come along, and he gets to munch. So he has a pretty good life. There's that tail coming down. One last thing to mention about why these are considered advanced snakes that aren't for beginner keepers is that they are just delicate physically. This is an extremely light-bodied, physically delicate animal. That tail that's always wrapped so tightly around this branch, if you were to pull too hard, could easily be dislocated or even ripped off, if you ask me. It's something I'm always aware of when I'm interacting with or handling toothpaste, but it's not something that causes me a great amount of anxiety. That said, if somebody brought their young child over and they wanted to see my snakes, I have plenty that I would readily hand off to a young child. Toothpaste, however, is definitely not one of them. Toothpaste is also a snake that is extremely unlikely to escape or get very far if he does. I have had an incident in the past where I left his old enclosure cracked overnight and he did not leave. So I never really water the plants in the enclosure. They get enough from the general misting that I do daily, which is pretty serious. You can see the beads of water forming on Toothpaste himself. And you do want to spray down the actual animal every time you mist. You might see them kind of shirk away from it because it is cold, but it's very natural for them to get wet and to get rained on every single day for a short period and then dry off. That's how it goes, and you will see him licking the droplets off of himself, or if he's really thirsty, he'll actually coil up so tight that his body segments come together underneath the branch, creating a cup, and water will pool there, and then he'll put his face down in it and drink from the cup that he's created himself, which is just about as cool as it gets. And yeah, he's actually taking little sips right now off of his own neck. Something we've all done. Last thing I want to touch on with green tree pythons is their awesome potential as a breeding project. I only have one right now, but I definitely want to get a second. I definitely want to produce baby green tree pythons one day because I really want to kill the wild caught and quote-unquote farm breeding industry for these animals. We need to have such a robust stock of captive born and bred animals in the international community that the demand for them in their natural range is kaput, Beyond that, I think they have great longevity as a breeding project species. They have an advanced level of care that's a barrier to entry. They have a high price point, which is a barrier to entry. So not every average Joe is going to be breeding green tree pythons, and therefore the price is going to be fairly stable where it's at, which is indeed high, and it's unlikely to plummet anytime soon. Again, this is an animal that's suited to life in captivity. I might even go as far as to say that toothpaste has a better, more comfortable, safer life than he would if he was out in that crazy wild world out there, getting picked off by a bird of prey or losing his habitat to logging or whatever else. Also, I love him. All right, y'all, that's it for this episode of Spicy Species Review, where the reviews are spicy, and I am too. I'm your boy, Hoi Noi, aka Horrible Noise, aka Alex. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you want to know more about what it's like to keep various species of reptiles, amphibians, arachnids, and other weird exotic pets that make people think that you're crazy, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, shoot me a comment telling me what you liked or what was missing from this video. I love interacting with the people that are watching. Makes me feel good. If you want to support this channel even more, I do now have a Patreon page, which is linked below in the description. You could chuck me a few pennies a month to support what I'm doing, help me feed my animals, take in more rescue animals, get better equipment, and just create this content that you're here enjoying so much right now. Shout out to my current patrons, Nasty J and Big Clay Dog from the streets of Windermere. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and keep it real on the daily. That's all I ask, really. That's all you gotta do for me. Thank you.